We're up to the Mishnah on Kuf Dalid Amid Aleph. And again, we're continuing to discuss things that were permitted in the Beis Hamikdash and not in the Medina. Boiskin melach agabe kevesh, b'shvil shelo yachliku. When it would rain, again, the Mizbeach, there was no covering on the Mizbeach. When it would rain, the ramp would get wet and actually it would be slippery. So in order to go ahead and make sure you don't slip, they would go ahead and scatter salt on the Mizbeach, on the not the Mizbeach, on the ramp. B'shvil shelo yachliku. Umimalim, and you'll be able to go, permitted to go ahead and fulfill mibor hagoylo mibor hagodol begalgal b'Shabbos. It seems to be some type of device that makes noise. So you're able to fill on Shabbos, but not not on Yontif. Umiber hakir b'Yontif and ber hakir b'Yontif. The latter two things the Gemara is going to go ahead and explain. The latter two things the Gemara is going to go ahead in detail and explain. So Rami le Rav Ika mi Pashrun yo l'Rava Tanan Boiskin melach hagabi hakevesh. You can go ahead and scatter salt on top of the ramp. B'shvil shelo yachliku b'mikdash in b'medina loy. That's exactly our Mishnah. Uramini, I'll ask you a contradiction. A chatza shen is kalkala b'megashamim. A person's chatzer that has become muddied and unusable because of the rain. Maybe teven. You can bring teven, which is straw, umar deba, and you're able to go ahead and scatter it in there. So you can see that even in Medina, you're able to scatter. Now, right now, the Gemara is not making a chilik between salt and straw, and the assumption is that you see that scattering something in the Medina is permitted. So it says shiny teven. Now, there's a difference. Teven is different than straw. You're not going to be mevatel it. If you go ahead by salt, you'll be mevatel the salt, but teven you won't be mevatel. Let's see Rashi over here. Says Rashi that the mevatele the leka mishum ashve gumos. Now again, we learned that if you're mashve gumos, it's a told of boina. If you fill in crevices in Masechta Shabbos, we spent time on this. The difference between the field where it's chayrish and the house where it's boina. And ostensibly a chatzah would be considered bona. So therefore, it's not considered why b'Shabbos to have a kibinyan. The midi the chazi l'maychel behema, something that can be used to go ahead and give an animal oiletit or to make bricks. Hachaymos lo mevatel hasam. You're not going to mevatel it. Aval melach mishenidras beregel. Once you walk on the regel with your feet on top of the salt, like chazi, you can't use it. So again, what was the stira? Our Mishnah says that you could go ahead, and in the Medina, you weren't able to go ahead and spread salt. Says the stira, in the Medina, you were able to spread straw. So again, in the Havamina, no distinction between salt and straw. In the Teretz, you have a tremendous distinction between salt and straw. Teven, even if you spread it in the Chatzar, it still retains its use as fodder and or a bonding material for bricks to hold it together. So therefore, even if you spread it there, you're not mevatel it. If you're not mevatel it, it's not considered you filled in the hole. Conversely, salt, if you walk in it, you can't do anything with it. So therefore, it will be considered what in the Medina that you mevatel it, and it will be mashva gumos in that situation. So therefore, that's the distinction, and that answers the stira. Amar Ravacha b'rei Rav Ravashi, Hay melech echidami. So now, what you introduce concept of bittul, it's on the Mizbeach, what are you doing with it now? So now, if you're mevatel it, so what's the isser? The chayre, there's no holes on the ramp, right? So there's not mashva gumos. But kamoisif abinyan, it's considered you're adding on to the dimensions of the kevesh. And we know from other Masechtas, Shuas, I recall, and other Masechtas, that the David HaMelech did not build the Beis HaMikdash, guys, but David had the exact dimensions of the Beis HaMikdash. And so therefore, you would be adding on to the dimensions. If you mevatel the salt, l'chora, it would be adding on to another layer, right? So hey, it says in my eating mevatel kamas the binyan. V'id loy mevatel, and if you're not mevatel it, then havi chatzitza. It's a chatzitza. The Kahanim were barefoot. B'shas avoida, you couldn't have anything be between their interspersing. a barrier. You couldn't have what? A barrier between the foot and the mizbeach. You couldn't have it. So if you're telling me manashach, if you mavatal it and it's considered part of the mizbeach, and therefore it's not a chatzitza, you got a problem of being moist on the dimensions of the mizbeach. Conversely, if you're not mavatal it, so then it's not part of the mizbeach, so you don't have a dimension problem. You got a chatzitza problem. And for the Gemara, it's speaking about the act of bringing we're going to see in Masechta as we go through Kachim, there's the act of once you shech the carbon, you would bring it and then you'd put it down on the Mizbeach, on the Kevesh. You put it on the Kevesh, then you would transport it from the Kevesh onto the Mizbeach. It's a whole series we're going to see in Masechta Yuma. And so the Gemara's Havamina now is that act of putting it on the Kevesh is not an avoida. If it's not an avoida, then chatzitza doesn't pose a problem. So that would be a very good way out. I'm not mevatel it, but it's not chatzitza because it's not an avoida, because it's speaking about the act of transporting the limbs onto the kevesh itself. Right? The Gemara of you mean to tell me that it's not an avoida, but ksiv v'hikr v'koyin es hakol v'hikram mizbeach, and the koyin should bring close and be burned in the mizbeach. What does it bring close? V'amamar zuei lechas evorim lekevesh. And the koyin should be close. Guys, anytime it says koyin, it's an avoida. There's hakpada, it'd be done with the koyin. And it says this hikriv is the act of putting on mizbeach. So hodra kushal educhte, the kasha returns. If you're not mavatal it, it's a chatzitza. And you can't tell me putting the limbs is not an avoida. We see, in fact, it is an avoida. So this salt, what's it doing there? If you mavatal it, it's being moist on the dimensions. And if you're not mavatal it, it's a chatzitza. You know what's used for when you bring the eitzim up that you shouldn't slip. It's not an avoida. So regarding that, since it's not an avoida, I guess I'm not exactly sure what it means. That it doesn't mean that you could put it there. And if it's an avoida, in other words, when you put the keves, when you bring the limbs up, you can't put it there. It would mean I think this is pshat. You'd only be able to put the salt there in a time when you're transporting I guess it would make a little sense also. You're carrying heavy wood. You're carrying heavy wood up the ramp. You put salt on it to make sure you don't slip. But in Achinami, b'shas, the transportation of the limbs, that you would not be able to go ahead and put salt on. I guess that's the only way to learn pshat. Dorish Rava. Chatza sheniskalkala b'megasham. A chatza that got ruined again as a result of the rain. Maybe tevin, we said earlier, you bring tevin, umardapon, you scatter it on Shabbos. Amalei Rapapa l'Rava Batanya Kishu Marda Eina Marda Loi B'Sal V'Loi B'Kupa Ella B'Shulei Wat Kupa. The mashma is when it says that you could bring tevin and scatter it, it's mashma even in a normally way, guys. What would you do if you had a scattered tevin? You'd bring a basket and you would go ahead, take your hand and go like this. And it's mashma, you could do it in a normally way, and we call urche. And now it says, no, you can't use urche. What can you do? It says you can't bring a sal, you can't bring a kupa, a box, ela b'shule kupa, a broken box. You can bring a broken box and scatter it. So l'chari, you have a contradiction because broken box is not urche. So it's mashma, you have to do some type of shinoi. Says the Gemara, Hada uki Rava Amoira Aleha. Rava, who had said this halacha, went ahead and he put the Amoira was the one who would report what Rava said. I guess he had a loud voice. He would speak to the masses. Vidarish devarim sharmat lefnechem toyas ein. That I told you is a mistake. Biyadi Bram kach omro mishum Reb Eliezer or Reb Elazar kishu mardo, when he goes ahead and he scatters ein amardo loy b'sal v'loy b'kupa ela b'shulei kupa. In other words, ein achinami, you're not allowed to do it urche. You're not allowed to do it in the normali way. You have to do it with the shinoi. Now, the second din of the Mishnah was something about filling from one bar to another bar, and we're going to get into the sugya, guys, of shmias kol, that the issur of going ahead and making noise or music on Shabbos. So Ula ikla lebei Rav Menashe. Ula showed up in the house of Rav Menashe. The yeshiva Rav Menashe Asla, who got a person came along, Tarif above, and he knocked on the door. So Amar man hai liskol gufa the kamachal leil Shabbat. This person's guf should be mechalol because he mechal Shabbos. In other words, he held banging on the door is chol Shabbos. Amalei Rabba was Amalei Rava le asu ela kol shel shir. The only isser of noise that you make is the kol of a shear. Banging on a door is not exactly the kol of a shear. Let's see Rashi, guys, where it gets very wide. Second line down, the kol shel shear, hanishma ke'ein shear, that can be heard like music, b'ne'ima u'benachas, with ne'ima, with pleasantness, u'benachas, and slowly. But knocking on a door is not exactly b'ne'ima u'benachas. So therefore, he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. I do remember there's a shaila about using a knocker on Shabbos because it's made to make a noise. So to use a knocker on Shabbos, you should bang with your hand, not use one. If a person is a knocker, not to use a knocker. Even though you're not being mitzi cliche, but you are making. It's made for the purpose of making noise, and I think it's muktzah, and you shouldn't do it. Okay, says the Gemara. So therefore, he told him that Rava told Ula, it's not a problem. Now, Malin b'diyufei umitipim miyarik l'choyle b'Shabbos l'choylin l'bariloi. Rashi is a long Rashi here, guys. B'diyufei is a siphon. You're siphoning one thing to another, and tipim is you have a kli. You put water in the kli. You put your hand on top, which now you have no air going in, and there's holes in the bottom. As soon as you remove the hand, now the water can begin to drip. And it drips into a kli and it makes noise. You put your water, when there's no air, you put something like you put your finger on, take your finger off, and it goes in. So that's exactly what this kli was. It would drip on a chayla. The noise, I guess, was good for the chayla. I guess the noise was a soothing noise. So therefore, that was
a siphon like we used to do in the 70s for gas.
You're not supposed to be saying that, Barabim. Yeah, if you remember, you go like this and you get it in your mouth and you spit it out. That's gosh. He's dating himself. 1973, there was the oil embargo. You had to lock your cap because people were stealing your gas. Okay, anyway. Gas went then from 35 cents to like a buck, like overnight. It was crazy. Triple, it was unheard of.
Remember the gas lines?
What?
The lines.
Odd and even plates. Okay, let's go anyway. So this kli made noise. So now it's mashma l'chayla in l'bari loy. Now 1 second. Hechidami lav didnoyim. He's sleeping because boy little tire, and you want to go ahead and wake him up. He's sleeping, and you want to go ahead and wake him up. So we see go ahead to create a kol, it would be asa. Now, you're waking him up, you want the koil, and the koil is not musical, right? And the koil is not musical, correct? Since it's not musical, then it should be mutter according to you. Just like knocking Rava, you said knocking on a door is permitted, so this also should be permitted. So, and for the Gemara loy, the tier he's up. The kaboy the nayim, and he has to go to sleep. The mishtama ki kala dizimzume, and this kli made noise like a bell. So therefore, it was like that's the sound that's asa. So we're only going to permit it for what? For a chayla. We wouldn't permit it what? For a person that's healthy. But inachinami, if it was just a noisemaker without that bell-like sound, it would be permitted. Someone is watching the peiros because of the birds, udalav and a gourd. He shouldn't go ahead and bang his hands together. He shouldn't go ahead and beat his chest. In other words, stamp your feet, bang your chest, make noise. My time of that's the reason it's also to do this. Lav the kamoilud kala, right? Chala kala aser. Again, questioning Rav is din. Says Rav, the only aludi kala that's aser is one that has the ne'ima of music. Over here, pashtus, you're making noise to scare away the intruding animals. And l'chayra, you're not making musical sounds. And still aser kasha on Rava. The reason why you can't do this is we let you do these actions you may come to pick up a rock, which is usher, and throw it in Rishus Harabim to go ahead and chase away the animals. So therefore, that's why you can't do it. Women that play with nuts, usher, it's usher. My timer, the nuts, I guess they would roll nuts. I don't know, do you guys Pesach play with the filberts? I used to play with filberts Pesach time. We had a, yeah? Okay, good.
Talk about
One is
dating,
you hit it.
talk
One
about
is you.
dating yourself.
In Borough Park, but they're good on 14th Avenue.
14th Avenue are good.
14th
Okay,
Avenue.
it's nice to be learning with a bunch of old people.
Oh, it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so l'chayre it's usher to do. Now the mean it's usher to do is because of what? It's elude kala, because it makes a coil. The elude kala is usher. Loi dilma asi la ashve gumais. Again, they're playing on a floor that is earth. So we're worried. It's not the noise we're worried about. They may come to smooth the floor, which is a told of baina. If you don't say that's the right shot, hada amra Yehuda. Nashim misachkos b'tapuchim. Women play with tapuchim with apples. There was a game with apples, and I guess they would roll apples, right? They were not bobbing apples. I think they would roll apples.
Bocce ball.
Bocce. It's bocce. Underneath the L, Hasam, my elude kala ikka. Obviously, you're not making eladilma asil ashvei gumais. There, you're going to come to go ahead and you mash for gumais, and so here as well. Tanan, mimalim ibor hagoyim ibor hagoyim begalgo b'Shabbos the migdashim medina law. My time lav mishum de elude kala. Now, I'm not sure. I'm learning galgal is some type of apparatus. Art school touched it windlass. I have no idea what that is. I'm touching it as some type of apparatus that makes noise. Okay, that's some type of apparatus when you go ahead and you turn it and it makes noise. So again, you can't do it in the Medina because it makes noise. It's not a musical noise. That's a kashan rava, right? You're making noise and it's not musical.
Didn't we have that in the mikdash, early in the morning?
Yes. That's why I'm learning that pshat.
Yeah.
That's why I'm learning that pshat. They would get up from the coil of the galgal of the kior that they would lower into the mikvah that you shouldn't have a problem with lina. Right? Good. Now it says the reason you can't do it, if we let you draw water, you may come to go ahead and irrigate. There's nothing to do with making noise. It has to do with irrigation. I'm permitted to go ahead and fill up a galgal in mechuzah. Amar, my time agaz rabban shemi yimal leginas t'chubasai hachalagin eka. Right? In other words, the reason why it's aser, if it was asalude kaila, it should be aser b'chol makayim. If it's because of a gina and a chorva, so he's tied it. He tied it that there was none there. Amima said there was nothing there. There was no reason to aser. So says Gemara, kivin the kachazi on the base. Since they saw the Qatari by Kisna, during the week they would take this and use the water to go ahead for a chaldik thing to go ahead and soak their flax, then aslahu asked them. In other words, it had nothing whatsoever to do with the gina, but they were using it for something else, and therefore he said it was us.
Google touches a windlass as a winch. So you're right. It's like an apparatus that
Yeah,
one.
so that would be good. That would be. Now we're really getting low. We're going from art scroll to Google. I'm a foolish Google. Baruch Hashem. Guys, do you all have that we're ending Eruvin feeling? Are you looking at the next stop? Are you looking at the next stop and seeing a half a daf?
A few times, yeah.
Okay, a few times. You want to make sure Shabbos it didn't change, right? It didn't change on you.
Tomorrow's only a number?
Tomorrow's only a number, right? Tomorrow's going to be only a number.
That's what the world does?
Yeah, that's what the world does. Daf a day.
And then you don't got a daf.
Half a daf a day. There you go. So says Umi Barak Akir. On the Yontif, you're able to go ahead and fill from this Barak Akir. What is this Barak here? Amashmul Bar Shekiru Leha Devarim. It's a bar where they express arguments over. It's a bar where they express their arguments. Look at Rashi. Shekiru Leha Devarim, top line. Kishalim and Agoyla, when they came up, they were oila from Bavel. Hutzuchullah, they needed this. Kidl Kaman, as we'll see. The Nimnu, and they came together. The Tiruha, and they were mata to go ahead and take water from this. They permitted you to go ahead and use this winch. Only this one alone they permitted. So they permitted it because it was necessity, and the lashon of hikar is lashon of expressed. Not all. Now you see that if mashma when it said the first teretz we bought hikar that it was only one, and here it seems to say that what there were others. It seemed to say that bar hikarois there was more than one. It says why do you mean only this one? So Ella Amar of Nachman by Yitzchak Be'er Mayim Chayim. It wasn't a lashon of expression. It was lashon. They permitted this one that it's under subterranean water. It had its own source. Shenemar ki hakir bir me kemeha, as a spring causes its water to flow. Gufa lo kol habaris hikari sitiru el zubavad ukshol b'nei goyla chanu aleha. They went ahead and they came together. They encamped on it. Unevim shebnei mitiru lehem. And the Levim that were among them, they mastered it. Not only Zechariah Malachi, it was a minig from even before the Nevi'im to use this Ber Mayim Chayim. Okay, very good. Sheretz Nimsha b'Migdash. Now we all know, fellas, that a sheretz is an avatuma. If it touches the person's tamei. If a sheretz touches a garment, the garment's a rishon. The rishon cannot go ahead and be with a person. The Gemara is discussing if you find a dead rodent in the base of Migdash, what do you do? Do you take it out right away, or do you delay to take it out in a manner which you won't cause any tumah? If you take it out right away, whatever he touches it is going to be tamei. If it's a person, it'll be tamei. If it's a person's garment, the garment will be tamei. There are kalim which are not makabel tumah, such as pshute kli eitz. Is a pshute kli eitz is why it is this is the nichnis. The person comes tamei in the base of Mikdash. He's not chayv kares. Only the nichnis is chayv kares.
Pottery shards.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move with pottery shards or a pshute kliyates. You have a wooden kli that's not makabel tumah. It doesn't have a receptacle area, so that's going to be the quick discussion at hand. So sheretz shenimsa b'migdash koyin moitzi behimnai. A koyin, despite the fact that koyin is muzer on tumah, he takes it out with his gartel. He takes it out with his behimnai. He takes it out with his gartel right away. In other words, don't delay. Take your gartel off. Pick up the mouse and get rid of it. You should not be mashet tumah. You shouldn't delay having tumah in the base of Mikdash is a no-no. Divrei Rabbi Yochanan and Breika. That's the words of Rabbi Yochanan and Breika. Rabbi Yehuda says no. B'tzivas shel eitz. You go ahead. Rabbi Yehuda says go and get a wooden tongs. Shaloi l'Rabbi says tumah. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, naturally it's going to take more time. You're going to have to go get it. If you take your belt, the belt's right there. You take it off and you take it and you get it. Over here, you're going to have to go take the tongs and find the tongs to get it. It's going to delay longer. However, you'll have the advantage of what? Not being marba tumah, because the tongs are not mikabel tumah. They don't receive tumah. So it's very geshmak, the two drachim over here.
Why? It's considered a pshutikli eight? Tongs?
Yes. Mehechi moitzion. Where do you take it out from? Mina heichel. If it's in the heichel, the heichel is kaddish. Right, that's where the Mizbeach Hazav is, the menorah and the shulchan. Umina ulam. The ulam is again that for the antechamber right before that in the shape of the T. Umi bein ulam and Mizbeach, between the ulam and Mizbeach again that has a place of kedusha. There Reb Shimon ben Nanas. But not the rest of the Azara. The rest of the Azara not. Yeah. Reb Kiva Omer kol you put a pot on it. The rest of the Azara you just put a pot on it. Rabbi Kiva says any place that if you entered in a state of tumah and you shoge you b'chayv chatas or b'mezi b'chayv kares, you would have to go ahead and remove it, meaning the whole azara. Kiva's machmir. You'd have to remove it. It's not enough to put a pot on it, right? Like Rabbi Shimon ben Nanas. Only the more severe kedushitic areas. The other areas, even though you chayv kares in the azara, you'd put a pot on it and that would be okay. Rabbi Kiva says no. Any place you be chayv kares, you have to go ahead and get rid of that sheretz. The shakol mekaymis and any other place that it's in that you would not be mechayev. Any other place that's in kleifin alav pastika, you would go ahead and put on it. You put a pastika on it, and that would be and that would suffice. And that right. Rashi says, Ushar Kol Mekayim, the second line towards the end. Lemar Kidei Islay, Ben Nanis according to his opinion. Ulemar Rabbi Akiva Kidei Islay according to his opinion. Le Ben Nanis, Kula Azara. To Ben Nanis will be the whole Azara, right? Because he holds only the area Ben Ulam Mizbeach Heichel and Ulam. Rabbi Akiva L'Shakais, the chambers. Rabbi Akiva, the chambers that are off the Azara, not the Azara proper, then you just cover them with a pastiger with a pot. Rabbi Shimon says some ambiguous statement, which you don't know what he means. Makom she'tiru lecha chachamim mishalcha nasan lecha, a place that the chachamim mated you from yours you give. Shaloi yetiru lecha ela mishum shvus. Okay, we'll have to see the Gemara exactly what that means. Amrav Tobi bar Kisna Amar Shmuel hamachnis tamei sheretz lemigdash chayev. If someone goes ahead and is machnis, in other words, you're not. If you're tamei, you chayev kares. Are you mitzuva? What happens if you would bring a sheretz in Heichet Timsa where you wouldn't be tamei? Let's say you're holding the sheretz in a kli. The kli is tamei, but the kli can't be mitam you because the sheretz makes the kli a rishon. So you have a mouse trap. You're carrying a mouse trap, a glue trap into the Beis Hamikdash. So the mouse is an av, the glue trap is a rishon, and you're tahar. Can you bring the glue trap in? Can you bring the sheretz in? Chayev says Rav Tavi Bakisna you be chayev. You chayev kares. Sheretz atzmai. What did I just say? Hamachlis tamei sheretz lemigdash. If someone brings the kli that the sheretz was metama, then you be chayev. The kli that determines, then you be chayev. However, sheretz atzmai pata. The sheretz itself you be pata. Now this is a mud nadin, right? L'chayre you should be chayev. So let's say the following. Forget my glue trap. Let's delete that. Okay. I have a pot. I find in the pot. I find a mouse. I throw the mouse out and I bring the pot into the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Says Rav Tavi bar Kisna Yibi Chayev Kares. What happens if you bring the mouse in? Yibi Pata. What kind of svara is that? When the svara doesn't make sense, guys, it's always a pasuk. Go be aware. When the svara doesn't make sense, it's always a pasuk. Says the Gemara, my time, Amakra, it says Mizacha ad nekeva. It says from Zacha until the Keva. V'oisei tishberu, she'ein lo taira. So it says Mizacha ad nekeva, tashlichu. Right? It's going to the Migdash and it says lo yitamus machneim, ashin anisoichi b'sleicham, and don't from Zacha and the Keva, you should not be metama my machneim, my camps that I'm living among. Now, dumya the zachem and the keva. Now, what do you know, guys, outside? What do you know about an adam? He has tyra b'mikvah. What do you know about a nekeva? She has tyra b'mikvah. What do you know about a sheretz? What do you know about a kli? The kli? There you go. It's kseres hakasiv. In other words, the thing that your mitzvah not to bring in is similar to a person. Just like a person has tyra b'mikvah, so too the thing that bringing in is something that's tyra b'mikvah. And mimela, since the sheretz has no tyra b'mikvah, a sheretz is a sheretz, right? So therefore, the only thing the only thing you be chayv on would be a kli that has tyra b'mikvah. So it's exeris hakasa. Amakra mizach and the keva tashlichu mishiyesh le tyra b'mikvah yatsa sheretz shein le tyra. Lema Messiah. Let me bring a riot to this concept. Mizacha ad nekeva tashlichu prat lekli cheres. Divri Rabbi Yossi Aglili. This would exclude a kli cheres. A kli cheres, guys, does not have tyra b'mikvah. You have to break it. My time, allow mishum the less like tyra b'mikvah. A kli cheres does not have tyra b'mikvah. So that's the reason. If you bring a tamei to kli cheres in, you would be pasha. Says no loy. Misha nasa abatuma yotza kli cheres she'enu nasa abatuma. A klicheres can't become an abatuma through a zav. It's a long Rashi over here. Basically, a zav can be metama, a corpse can be metama, but a klicheres cannot receive tuma cannot become an abatuma. And therefore, but you have no raya to what a tyre b'mikvah. Did Rabbi Yochanan breaker? Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Okay, le'mikit hanoi. Let's say some achloikas tanoim about bringing in the sheretz or bringing in the kli. Sheretz shenimtza b'migdash. Our Mishnah. Kain might seal behimnoi. Kain takes it out with his he doesn't delay, he brings it down right away with his belt. Shalei l'shai says hatuma, it's not to delay tum in the mikdash. Did Rabbi Yochanan breaker? Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda says B'tziva shel eitz, with a tang of eitz. Maitziyoi. Shloile Rabbi says atuma, not to increase tuma. My lav b'hokim mifli. This is what they're arguing in. The man the Amar Shaloi Lishois, the one who says you shouldn't delay that Rabbi Yochanan ben Brayka Ksavar Hamachne Sheretz the Migdash Chayev. In other words, obviously, if you mitzvah to get it out, you must be mitzvah not to bring it in. Don't delay, get rid of it. So obviously, you see that he holds a sheretz as a really chamed gazach. So it must be if he wants to get rid of it, you can't bring it in. And the one who says no, not to increase a kli, Rabbi Yehuda, to go get the wooden kli, he says kasava hamach l'sheretz l'migdash pata. So you want to say that you know it's not so bad being in there. Leave it in there till you get the kli. It says loy the kuliyam chayev. Even Rabbi Yehuda will be chayev. Certainly Rabbi Yochanan ben Brayka will be chayev because he says to get rid of it. But even Rabbi Yehuda says that you can delay until you get the wooden tongs would hold your chayev if you bring it in. What's the machlokes? Ma'asava shehuye tuma adif. One says that getting rid of tuma is adif, and therefore get rid of it, even though you're being marbet tuma on the beged. U'ma'asava afushe tuma adif, and one other one says afushe tuma is adif. If you increase tuma, that is adif. That is, and therefore don't go ahead and increase tuma using a belt. Go ahead and use a wooden tongs. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow night, Pesach Hashem.
Maish is there?
Yeah.
Go say hello.
Maish Mazel. Should give you
He's
fair enough.
coming around. He's coming around. Unzra Chassan.
Alles beim Chusser.